Hello, it's Frisco TV. My name is Daniil, and I would like to introduce you Robin, my old friend, which you met over a year ago in San Francisco at the Lean Startup Conference. And since then, we've been in touch and sharing our expertise and knowledge in practicing Lean. And I would like to know what's happening right now, how it's evolving, and what is your experience? Please tell first of all about yourself. How did you start working in it, and what you're involved right now?
So a little bit of background. 15 and a half years ago, I was fortunate to get involved in the early stage of a classified site in the Netherlands, much like Craigslist here in America. And I've seen that growing really from basically from nothing to the #1 classified site in the Netherlands. In 2004 we sold to eBay, and we're now part of the eBay Classifieds group. So from Amsterdam we're now managing 11 brands in 27 countries, replicating this format around the world. Since somewhere in 2010 I think I got in touch with Lean Startup. I read the book, and that to me was very recognizable to the things we did in the early stages of our company. And I, for many years, had been wondering how do I explain this to my colleagues? I saw them struggling, and I wasn't really sure what I was doing different that made me more successful in realizing my ideas. Then when I read the book, I recognized this, and I thought, this really gives me the language and the structure so that other people can also do this.
So what exact book you read? What was your first book?
The Lean Startup by Eric Ries.
Have you ever, did you read other books? Are you familiar with Steve Blank's methodology?
Yeah, I think I read the whole series by now, from Steve Blank's to Alistair Kroll, Lean Analytics, Ash Moria with Running Lean, and any book that has followed in the series.
And that helped you to get your own methodology and get it right, the concept that you're going to explain us.
Yeah, it greatly helped me to start promoting this at our company and really train my colleagues to apply the same. So after reading the books, I've basically forced them to read it. People will promise, they will say, yes, I will read it, but then they don't. It is important that they actually do.
I remember you had your own book of notes, which you shared with me a year ago, which you've been having all these findings there, right? And you're going step-by-step guidance. Do you still have it? Did it update and have it updated? And what's new happening? What's in the trend?
So over the last year I've given several workshops, both inside and outside the company. We organized a Lean Startup Machine in Amsterdam, much like the Startup Weekend we did last year here in San Francisco. So this is a 52-hour program in which you basically really go hands-on and apply this for real. So you work on an ID, you go out on the street, you talk to customers, and I think you can read many books, but this is you need to get going and really apply it. That's when the quarter will drop and you understand how.
Is that the same Lean Startup Machine which is in San Francisco, or it's totally different organization?
I think it originates from New York, so there's Startup Weekend coming from San Francisco, and Lean Startup Machine by Trevor Owens from New York, and together with Grace, who has been here at the conference as well. So Trevor flew into Amsterdam to help us organize one of the biggest Lean Startup Machines so far. We had 90 attendees in one weekend. It was a great experience,
That's great. And so could you tell me a bit about your role right now in eBay, and what exactly you do to promote Lean in the company, and the most important, what have been the results which you recently shared with me yesterday when we spoke with you?
Yeah, so I have a software engineering background. Originally I've been responsible for the product development and design of the company. Over the last 2-3 years I've really started focusing on innovation. I'm now head of innovation for Marktplaats, the company I founded, which basically comes down to being the Lean startup evangelist in the organization. and constantly challenging the teams in our company to apply customer development, to use the tools like Lean Canvas, and identify what are really the risks of the project they are working on, so that they can validate those first.
So, I mean, you're a big fan of Lean Canvas, right? And you support this methodology. How different is from business model canvas, and why you prefer Lean Canvas rather than business model canvas? And I would say, please start from the very beginning, like what is basically one and another, and then the difference for our audience who's not so familiar with the Lean principles.
I think for the most part they are interchangeable. Business model canvas uses a little bit harder language for newcomers. It talks about the relationship you have with clients and through what channels, etc. While Lean Canvas focuses more on problem, solution, unique value proposition, and personally I prefer the Lean Canvas because I really like the problem first focus of it, which is missing on the business model canvas. The problem statement is not a factor in there. What also the business model canvas I think is missing is the unfair advantage, which to any company, especially an established company that usually works slower than a startup, should be able to define what's your unfair advantage. Why should you be doing this ID? And why wouldn't any startup copy your ID and outpace you in speed? They can take bigger risks, so we need to understand if we do something in the company, why us? Why should we be working on this?
I mean, the resistance to change, right, for big corporations and to adapt Lean, I think is pretty much now is less and less, right? I mean, every year, and at the same time, more startups adopting Lean methodology. Could you, and I believe that one of the reasons why is that is actually positive returns and on the time invested into adapting it and eventually seeing results. Could you please share with our audience what been results in your company and your implementation in the past year?
Yeah, so implementation at first goes slow and takes patience because you will fail several times before you hit a success. This is a period you need to fight to survive inside your company so that you don't get stopped. But recently we found our first real successes. We did a lot of iterations and customer development on a core problem in our business around the revenue source and multiplied that revenue by 7. Well, that is a number that we don't see often. Like double-digit growth for us is still common, but to have a triple-digit improvement on a revenue source is really an exception and gets noticed by the management. And as I've been advocating this method for the several years now, it creates trust with the management and belief that this it may indeed be the process that leads to success rather than having the right idea.
So, like you said about double digits, triple digit, could we be more specific? Like, hey, the result without Lean was X, and now like we improved it 50%, like or 100% more. The company earned X number more because actually they implemented Lean technology. We launched some new product or feature more successful. It could be more specific.
So we have been we had a 700% increase on one of our revenue sources. For a business like ours, that means several millions per year. Compare that to the team size with only 3 engineers that have worked on this maybe for 6 months doing customer development. That's a huge return on investment. If we look at other projects, we may realize similar amounts of revenue, but the risk is much higher. So we really don't know whether we can achieve return on investment. And also you see that typically the investment is much higher because we start building, we work for maybe 6 months with a team of 10 to 15 people on actually implementing a product, sending out a press release, doing marketing over it. So that all comes on top of the development cost.
And you said that it just takes time and you had to go through several failures. Can you please explain more what kind of failures is that and how to kind of go with it or through it?
Yeah, I believe that even though you may have a great idea, usually there are in the beginning also like several things not perfect in your assumptions. You're going to be wrong about a few things in there, and that may be the difference between a huge success or a failure. Or often you may find some moderate success if it was a good idea, but you didn't find the full potential of it. The failures we have gone through, I say failure because we didn't immediately achieve our goals. Mm-hmm. But
by failure you don't mean that everything was wrong, it's crashed, you close the project and start new. You mean something else.
Something, yeah. So we tested an assumption. We failed as in we found out that we were not exactly right about that. And the most important thing there is from every of those steps we learned something. And it's really a serial process, like a chain where after every iteration we do a retrospective and we ask ourselves what did we learn from this and what should we change about our idea, and we try again. So it's really like a hill climbing approach and seeing like what works, what doesn't, and step by step in an iterative way we find our way to success.
That's interesting. I would say, do you think that there is something that there is about the time when you say, okay, if we give up, we should stop iterating, we should stop changing our assumptions, and I mean, when is the point when you say return on investment doesn't worth, the effort doesn't worth the actual return? When this point is, I mean, that everybody is interested. Like we all understand. Like, I mean, in my personal case, I've been iterating with my company. We had 3 major pivots and small pivots. We iterated many times, and I mean, a lot of companies with who we began, like the next program with Steve Blank in 2012, most of the companies dead now. They don't exist. They give up at some point. And I mean, when do you think is the right time to give up for a company, for a startup, or even for a project inside the company?
Well, first of all, I believe never give up, but that's more as a person. Like if you want to chase your dreams, you should persevere. However, yeah, you may be on to a wrong idea. You may be after a market that doesn't exist, and your experiments, your attempts should tell you. So you should you should define your experiment so that every time you have a real learning out of it, and you know for sure whether this is true or false. If you go out and you believe there are thousands of customers like this, and you can't find any, you may try another time in another place and another place, but you quickly basically run out of good ideas where you might find them. And if you have tried that a few times, I would say perhaps start thinking about something else. Yeah.
So yeah, do I understand you right that you mean if you run out of assumptions, what is wrong with your idea, and you cannot really test. There's nothing to test. That's about the time you kind of has to give up.
And when you stop finding real learnings out of your experiment, so often you're wrong about an assumption, but during the test there is an aha moment. It's like, oh, well, but this person, like these customers do exist, but it's not exactly that problem they have. But they mentioned this much bigger problem that I wasn't really aware of. So that may be a good option for a pivot. You may find that they wouldn't be willing to pay in the way you thought to charge them, but you learn how they might be willing to pay you. Maybe you need to change a little piece of your plan then and test again.
And that's a very good point. And always introduce the customers on any assumption you have. Right? Because I just recently been mentoring a team from entrepreneurs from Kazakhstan, and I was surprised how many of them built a product, built interesting business models in terms of the actual business, and they done very little interviews with their potential customers. So, and when we kind of I force them to put their ideas in a business model canvas and ask them to validate their lean canvas and ask them to validate their ideas. And how many interviews you done on each of your assumptions? It was none. And then they did, and I forced them to do actual interviews. Half of their assumptions disappeared. And I was, building a product for the wrong assumptions, that's a lot of work, a lot of money, a lot of time, and eventually, wasted opportunity, I would say.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, could you please share, like, in terms of the recent changes, improvements? Like, we've been here at the Lean Startup Conference last year, and now we see a lot of presenters and talks this year. What has changed just in recent year? Because what I found out that it's evolving. The lean methodology is evolving, it's updated, and you have to be constantly up to date.
Well, so I think this year I see two big changes. On one side, we're getting more and more case studies and concrete examples of how you can apply this. What works, what doesn't.
More success stories.
It's less about go talk to customers, but here's how to talk to customers, and I think that was something that so far a lot of people were searching for, and little information was available. And on the other side, you see that it's really being picked up now also by large corporates. It's not only for small teams that have moonshot projects and want to build a new company. This can also be applied in even the largest enterprises.
Even American government.
Yeah.
We've seen the government representatives hiring and looking for people to bring.
Yeah, no longer an excuse that your organization is too political to apply lean startup, because even the politicians are doing it.
It's amazing. And so, do you think that lean methodology is more useful for startups or now for bigger enterprises, or where do you think there's the most effect?
I think both. I believe a startup really is to search for a new business model, so that can happen both inside and outside a large company. And it's about just de-risking your plans. It is systematically reducing the risk until you feel confident enough to make a bigger investment. For example, quitting your day job to go on this full time, or to empty your savings account and put it in this, or to go to an investor and ask him to take this risk. So for this, and where that point is, so when have you validated your ID? That's also different per ID. And per person, because some people are more confident with taking a bigger risk than others do. So how far you need to de-risk it is really personal.
Absolutely. And also one of the very interesting moments that we came to the lean methodology from very different ends. While me being like pure business background and like very less related to IT and programming, and you came from the very IT, like hardcore IT background. And so, do you think that people with different backgrounds have different view on lean, or it's more or less effective? Or let's say, how it's different from people from IT background and non-IT background, and is it useful for both?
I think in general people with an IT background, they are used to systematically test things, and we have also test-driven development in software engineering, so we're familiar with the concept of writing a test first and only then doing the implementation. I see the same a lot with designers. They also have, they're used to an iterative process with their customers. For example, when you're doing logo design, it's no exact science. You need to find out the picture that the customer have in their head really quickly, because you don't want to waste your hours. But I think there are many professions like that. And I think the diversity in a team is good, because people really have different views and create different ideas that complement each other. So having a good and diverse team with business and technical people is really valuable.
So do you think that lean methodology is equally useful for the business people with business background and technical background?
Absolutely, yeah. I think the only difference in what it is for people, it doesn't sit with the background. I think it sits with the personality. As you need to go out and talk to customers, I see it's a bigger step for people who are a strong introvert versus the people who are a strong extrovert. It can be really scary to go out and talk to people you don't know. That is something you need to overcome. But even the introverts, and we have many in our company that I took by hand and went to talk to customers, come back and say, oh, this is a really great experience. And it remains scary every time you do it, but they get to enjoy it and they keep doing it, and you see that they become more successul this way.
So it works not only in San Francisco, in California, it works anywhere in the world, including Amsterdam.
Absolutely. We did it with the Lean Startup Machine in Amsterdam. 52 hours, we had 19 teams, 3 teams are continuing as a real startup. They found some validation, and these are teams that spontaneously created during the weekend, but they found real evidence that they were onto something, so they are now exploring further and seeing if they can build this into a company.
So we've seen a lot of success stories of startups and big companies implementing Lean methodology, and it's been evolving quite a bit. Like historically, like the person who made it to the masses was Steve Blank with his book 4 Steps to Epiphany, and then Eric kind of learning maybe a little bit from Steve, like since Steve was his mentor, kind of took it over, and now he's the thought leader in this space. I mean, how do you see the difference between what Steve was teaching and his approach and compared to Eric's approach?
So, as Steve Blank with his book introduced, and his courses at Stanford, introduced customer development, a systematic process to validate assumptions through interviewing customers. He has been a mentor of Eric at Infu. And Eric combined this with, Eric has an engineering background. He combined this with an iterative process on software engineering, agile software development, and suggested to use the two in parallel with each other throughout the entire life cycle of the company, the whole development cycle. I think the combination of the two, what we call lean startup nowadays, is particularly strong because it also gives the engineers a way to develop the product incrementally, then go back to customers and to really test whether this is an improvement and what should be done next, what needs to be built next, and then to take a next iteration on the software development as well. In addition, Eric succeeded at spreading this to a very large audience and to really make it accessible to many more people than it used to be. Created much opportunity for many later to add to this. Ashton did great work on this. Alistair McRoll did great work on that.
It's amazing. Like, I mean, a lean approach. I mean, only lean approach was known like from 2011, right? I mean, it's officially started, and only like in 3 years we see constantly people coming from all over the world with like from pretty senior positions in the large corporations, both participating and speaking. And how many people are here in this conference? Like thousands.
Yeah,
how many thousands?
Yeah,
like
I wouldn't know how much, but if I see the large room being filled up, then you can see that it's on high demand. Yeah.
And I mean, it's like 4 rooms, and they're all filled up.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So, I mean, the spread of the idea is huge. So, I mean, it's interesting how you put like Steve Blank's into the evolution of Lean and Eric's methodology, because I've been a student of Steve Blank back in 2012 when Eric was just starting, right? And there, Steve Blank was like more like customer development. That's for the business people, you know, people with business background. Rather than lean approach, he gave it to the engineers and say that's the way engineers work. And what I see personally over the years, that like Eric was managed to make an umbrella which covers both now for business, people with business backgrounds and the technical backgrounds, and it's fascinating. I don't think that like before it was such a huge gap between business people and the developers. And do you believe that Lean was something that fostered it? Made the bridge, I would say, between developers and business people, or
yeah, I think it really helps to bring them close to each other. I agree there was indeed a gap between the two. The business people had to find out what needed to be done, and then they shoot it over to the developers, go and build it. But the developers often had no idea why they were actually building it, and that doesn't help them to design the right product and build it the right way. It doesn't help them to question and challenge back, should this be built or can we do this simpler? They can find opportunities with technology, how they could do it better or make it easier for the user. That only works if they understand the problem that they are solving. Through Lean Startup and working in a multidisciplinary team where everybody is involved with the problem and talking to the customer directly really helps to effectively work as a team where you complement each other and where the business and developers each bring their expertise to the team, where 1 + 1 is 3 rather than 1.5.
So everyone in the team has to go and interview.
Absolutely.
I mean, I remember like when we were validating already, I also had to push my engineers, like almost kicked out from the building, literally, and saying like, don't come back before I get 15 interviews. And we had the task, and they had to find people anywhere outside and who they don't know. And then they came and shared our findings, and it's like, hey, is that a real problem that we're solving, and like what's happening? And then we I felt like we had some unity and collaboration, exactly what you were saying.
No, I think you should try to involve the whole team from the start, really to build a shared understanding. And also it really helps to motivate. You get to know the people that you're doing it for. So you know for who you wake up in the morning to go and build a great solution to what problem.
Yeah, and also I find interesting about how, I mean, first of all, like engineers get motivated that they speak to the real customers. Now they know that not some crazy manager is telling them to do some BS, but they know that actually people demanding it.
Yeah.
So it is less, you need to put way less effort to convince them that that's something useful. And the other thing which I found out interesting is, I'm losing my memory. When customer involved, we'll need to now wrap it up. But shit, man, I'm so tired.
That's been a long conference. So.
Yeah, I didn't expect that I'm so burnout now. Okay, yeah. So I mean, it's really fascinating to see how the teams are transforming, and engineers are not fighting with management anymore.
No.
And I think that people who just starting implementing Lean principles often do one mistake all over again, is they go through one circle of iteration, start thinking now we know everything, and they stop speaking to customers.
Yes.
And how, I mean, do you see that yourself, that is a mistake?
Yeah.
And how do you deal with it? How do you actually get people back to constantly speaking and constantly improving outside of just like...
So I see there are two problems. One is that people are way too comfortable behind their computer screen. They would rather run an A/B test or dig up data in a data warehouse and point out there we have the answer. Mm-hmm. But an A/B test only gives you one data point, a percentage difference, but it doesn't tell you why, and it doesn't tell you the empathy from the customer. Mm-hmm. And indeed, you see that many teams do it fanatically in the beginning. Then they say, yeah, we have validated our business model, let's go and build it. Lean Startup requires discipline throughout the whole process. So it really requires a well-defined process where you set yourself a goal to speak to, I don't know, at least 3 customers every week. and keep doing that throughout the whole process and never stop doing that. I believe also, and we are now a 15-and-a-half-year-old company. We try to get back to it now, and we should keep doing that also when we're 30 years old. Stay in touch with your customers so that you learn how can you improve, what did you do wrong, and what needs to change. Times change, your product further evolves, and you need to learn from your customers.
So this kind of mentality and methodology of constant learning, I think, has to keep you the company through all its process and through all its life, in some sort of saying.
Yes.
Amazing. So what would you say? Like, I know that you're a very busy person, and we've already been here for quite a bit, and I believe that we need to wrap up. And what do you wish to our viewers, and what will be your thoughts to motivate them to learn more about Lean, to go through the process in the company? What will be maybe some encouraging words which you could share with them?
I think stop reading and start doing. Stop preparing. This is the same as with your own business idea. Stop planning and start acting. Make a first step. And I believe that first step is so important. And if you're not ready yet to really start working on a project for yourself, join such a weekend. Like there's Lean Startup Machine, there's Startup Weekend, there's Evolve. Maybe around the world there are other ones. That is an invaluable experience. Just to go hands-on, really do it, and really learn how to ask proper questions.
I love it. So Robin suggests us stop reading and learning about Lean Startup, but just take everything in your hands and do it. And you'll learn by doing way more than theorizing who was the first, who was the last, who did what. Just do it yourself and you'll learn.
Yeah, start learning and make it an iterative approach. Apply Lean Startup to Lean Startup.
I love it. Thank you so much, Robin. It was a great pleasure speaking with you, and see you again. And hopefully we'll see you here next year.
Yeah.
And
I expect so.
And I would love to learn more about your progress, and I'm sure our viewers too. Thank you very much for being with us. I hope that you enjoyed our conversation, and see you next time. Thank you.